Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content. And if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Spyderco Mantra 3. It is a flipper in combination with a compression lock, which is neat. We don't see that very often. It's also running on bearings, which is another thing that we don't see as often from Spyderco. A lot of cool stuff here. You can pick this knife up right now. I will link it right down in the description, as well as Spyderco knives in general, so you can check out what else they've got going on. Thank you very much to Michael for sending this in for review. And thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon down in the description. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Overall length of the Spyderco Mantra 3 coming in at 7 1/4. It's very similar to actually the size of the Benchmade bug out. Blade length is about 3 1/4. Cutting edge again about 3 1/4 because of where this area comes to down here. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat 1 and its little brother, the Rat 2. This is actually really close to the size of the Rat 2. So there you go. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3? I think these will be interesting size comparisons for a lot of people. This knife is, I believe, exactly the same length as the Spyderco Para 3. So weird cousin of the Para 3 for sure. And last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and its little brother, the Mini Griptilian. Definitely larger than the Mini Griptilian, but definitely smaller than the Ritter Hogue. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check on this guy. As per usual, I'll get out my tools here. They are very recommendable and very inexpensive. You can find them right down in the description. I think everything, well, at least it looks to be T8. Let's check it out here real quick. T8 for the pivot. T8 for the body screws as well. This is great. It's actually using the wire clip, which I love for other reasons, but I also love because one of the screws that's actually holding it together is the screw for the pocket clip. So super minimal hardware, very straightforward. Spyderco knives with the compression lock that have countersunk liners are not super difficult to take apart, other than sometimes the lip on the lanyard barrel, like if it's the PM2 or the Para 3, it's a freaking nightmare. I don't have experience taking this guy apart, but a lot of times what you need to do is kind of scissor the scales apart, and then you kind of have to wiggle them up. It can be kind of a mess, but you can definitely do it. Once you take it apart once, it's generally easier after that. One thing's for sure, you will not have a problem with the screws. I'm pretty happy that they are large fasteners. Taichung Taiwan's hardware seems to be really good, which is where this, by the way, where this one's made. This is not a US Spyderco, it's a Taichung Taiwan Spyderco. So there you go. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. I'm going to guess it's about exactly the same. Yeah, it's actually a teeny tiny bit thinner, just a little bit. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here it is pretty tall, especially with the inclusion of the flipper tab. In fact, it's about exactly the same height. I mean, I know it's hard to see, you know, because whichever one's on top appears much larger than it actually is, but at maximum height between the point of the flipper tab, or the beak of the flipper tab, and the top of the spine here, it's about the same. Lengthwise, it's honestly, it's pretty much like the Para 3. It's maybe a little teeny tiny bit shorter, nowhere near as long as the PM2. Weight on this guy, like I said, we're looking at, well, I don't know if I said it yet, you're looking at that G10 and carbon fiber composite stuff, which is, I'm not really a huge fan of how they do that, but okay. And then we're looking at a pretty thin blade stock of S30V. 3.0, but nope, 2.96 ounces. Yep, that's fine with me. On this channel, I consider anything under 3 ounces ultra lightweight. That's just what I think. Blade stock on this guy, I'm going to guess, is probably about 110 thousandths, maybe 120 thousandths. Let's check. No way. That's not right. There's absolutely no way it's 150 thousandths. Yeah, there we go. 114 thousandths, 115 thousandths, something like that. All right. So this is a flipper. How weird, right? Combination flipper and compression lock. The only other one that I've handled, now there might be other ones out there, but I handled the amalgam. In the design of the amalgam, you very specifically came down on the point of the compression lock, and I think there was a larger gap right here, maybe, and so it made it really uncomfortable to flip. Say this, the detent on this guy is not super heavy, And because of the shape of the flipper tab, you can pretty much light switch it and just bypass that altogether. Even if you do like to push button it, it'll work, and the landing zone really isn't bad. I honestly don't have a problem with the actual flipping movement of this knife at all. It flips really well. The action's good. It's solid. It's also really smooth. As you can see here, it wants to fall. Now, you can pinch that compression lock and get that flipper tab to actually swing past your finger. But the natural position to grab the compression lock, which, I mean, if you've ever had like the Para 3, right? I know where I want to grab this, and I don't have to worry about things swinging through there because there's nothing in the way of my finger. Now, a lot of people are going to be quick to point out, he's about to complain that flipper tab is kind of like a nub, and it's bothering his finger on the way. Yeah, I am about to complain about that. Other people will say, well, now hang on a sec. You never complain about the Shaman, and it's basically the same thing. No. The Shaman's nub, the reason that I don't complain about it is because it's not a flipper tab, and it comes through and rests in the exact spot that you would need to interact with it. But I mean, by the time that thing is there, I mean, it's like 50% or twice the movement or the travel path of the blade before it's actually there. My finger is already naturally out of the way. My finger is, I'm not holding on to this all the way down. I naturally swing and move my finger out of the way. That's just what I naturally do. That's why the nub on the Shaman doesn't bother me. On this guy, though, you have to pretty much release you see what's happening there? I'm letting go of it before the nub is getting to my finger, and then that compression lock is creating friction because it's the detent ball is now contacting the blade tang again. And so it slows it down. Now, that's a silly complaint, truthfully. That's a complaint of a nitpicky enthusiast, right? But you have to get it just right or be low enough on the compression lock to get it to close like that with one hand. Because otherwise, if you just hold it, the nub's going to run into your finger. Yeah, you can pinch it way back here and hold it, and it'll pass your finger. But there's more tension back here. You have to squeeze it harder, and then what ends up happening is over time, I mean, this is only going to matter if you're going to sit around and flip this thing repeatedly on your couch. But I'm telling you, people who are familiar with Spyderco knives or not, you're going to find that to be the case, right? You either got to whip it really hard and get your feet. There you go. I got it right there, right? But it's the fate of all flipper / compression lock knives from Spyderco is that they're fine until we get to here, right? And that nub runs into your finger. So it's like you have to, it's kind of an obstacle course, right? You have to be remembering, like, I'm going to pull and I'm going to swing and then I'm going to move my finger out of the way, but it has to be exactly the amount of force to get the blade to go ahead and, close, even though the detent ball is going to go back to the tang face and create excess friction. There you go. You got it, right? As is the case with all things, you will adapt to it and you won't even think about it after a while. But is it a perfect system? No, it's kind of awkward, right? Flipping action is good, though. I will say that. I don't have a problem with the flipping action at all. Is that a deal breaker for this design? No, not at all. That's just somebody going, oh, there's a thing there, and it makes it's kind of frustrating. It's frustrating. Not a deal breaker. It's just something that, I mean, people who own this knife are going to go, yep, that's the case. People who don't own it and go ahead and buy it are going to go, yep, that's the case, right? Oh, well, whatever. Flipper tab is super nicely knocked down. Super well knocked down. Like that a lot. So this is a Spyderco knife, so it's already looks weird. But the part of this that really looks weird is this area right here, right? There's no sharpening choil, no forward choil of any type, right? It's just straight right here. Because there's no sharpening choil, this area right back here, as you sharpen it over time, is going to look weirder and weirder and weirder. Yeah, that's a frustration for some people. But there is absolutely nothing for it to get hung up on, and there's nothing in the cutting path. If it did have a little sharpening choil down there, it would keep it from looking weird, and it would keep this edge being consistent all the way back here after you sharpen it. But you would undoubtedly get the blade caught up and stuff, right? If you're pushing it through dense cardboard, it would get caught there. There's definitely no place to choke up on this knife. You can risk it, put it right here. I wouldn't, honestly. I mean, I would hold it right here. Now, because of this area right here, I mean, like I said, you can choke up if you want to risk it, but it's not safe because you can easily run your finger up on the blade. So in the natural, where you're supposed to hold on to it, the safest position, the standard position right here, which by the way, I can get a full 4-finger grip. This is comfortable back here, but because of the angle of the flipper tab and because this is the space you're confined to, it's a bit awkward and you're not a long ways from the edge. It's just it feels weird. It honestly feels kind of weird to hold, right? And practice, using it, holding it to cut, it's no big deal, right? It works. It's just this isn't and it's probably unfair to the mantra here because I mean, like I'm putting it up against masters of ergonomics like the Spyderco Para 3 and especially the Spyderco Shaman, right? There are so many knives in Spyderco's line that just have absolutely excellent ergonomics. And the truth is that the mantra's okay, right? It's just not nearly as good as other. It's not gonna be that ultra hand melting comfort that you get with other Spyderco knives, but that's okay. It's absolutely okay. It's just a little bit weird. That's my honest thought there, right? Thumb wrap feels good. Spyderco jimping, good. This is S30V. That's fine. I think we're all getting bored of S30V, but S30V is a fine, well-rounded super steel. Yeah, it's still a super steel. Absolutely. If you don't know, S30V has better edge retention than both S35VN and S45VN when heat treated properly, and Spyderco tends to do a really good job with their heat treat. It's also stainless, reasonably tough, right? It's made for knives, which is generally not the case with steel compositions. They generally have some other application first, and someone's like, hey, let's put this on a pocket knife, right? S30V is fine. We're just getting bored of it, right? I hate this carbon fiber composite G10 stuff. I hate it. Put it G10 on it or put carbon fiber on it, right? Charge us less, right? If you're going to charge us what you're charging for this guy, it should be full carbon fiber, like the Kapara. Fantastic. Love the Kapara, right? Put all, or go black G10 or whatever color G10 and charge us 20 to 30 bucks less. It's basically just a thin strip of carbon fiber with G10 underneath it, and I just hate it. It's just I'm being like so aggressive here. I just don't like it. It feels cheap. Like ever since I was aware of exactly what it was, I was like, This has basically it's mostly G10. It has basically the same strength as G10. That's fine. G10 by itself does not bother me. Carbon fiber by itself obviously does not bother me. For whatever reason, when they're together, it just really bothers me. Pick one or the other. But okay, not a big deal. And it obviously will hold up well during use. I mean, it's perfectly fine. I also like the texturing, truthfully. The texturing on this is just perfect. It's not as aggressive as the peel ply stuff. Like it's not like, like where you feel like it's like grating your dead skin off. But it's still enough to where there's traction there, right? Which I think is fine. I mean, it's just a pleasant feeling. Right? I'm not going to say specifically that it's aiding me in any way, but yeah, it feels good. Can you do the thumb flick? Can you do the reverse flick? Yeah, you can. In fact, after kind of messing around with this for a while, it made me realize I kind of just don't want the flipper tab on there. In fact, if this exact knife without a flipper tab would actually be a lot more ergonomically preferable. Because this tip isn't pointing down and it's like, no, keep your index finger right there. You can't go past this point. If that wasn't there and maybe this was a little bit softer, it might actually be a safer choke up point. Truthfully, I kind of just want a Mantra 3 without a flipper tab. But then what we have at that point is another regular Spyderco that's running on bearings instead of phosphor bronze. So I don't know. You have to really like the flipper tab. And they did it all right. It causes problems in areas that weren't like, it's not like we really need a flipper tab on this thing. So we're going to create some other obnoxious issues to get it on there because it's like it didn't need the flipper tab, right? But it's just not that big of a deal. Nice and thin behind the edge. Generally, in the case of Spyderco knives, you're going to get good slicing geometry. So this is going to do that, right? Tip, not going to be a super durable tip, so don't go digging around, prying around or anything like that. But for your cutting, your constant cutting, right? Push cuts or slice, whatever it is that you're doing, it's going to be just fine. Satin finish on the blade, fine. I like tumbled better. Up here on the corners, honestly, not that sharp. In fact, it's not even sharp enough for me to shred my fingernails on, so that's pretty cool. Looks like they did knock it down. Obviously, the edge is sharp. There's always someone who's like, the blade's not sharp? Oh, you're saying the blade's not sharp? No. The edge is sharp, the spine is not sharp, which is that sometimes, with the satin finish, that corner up there is not knocked down enough, and it's kind of just, it's another like little silly nitpick, right? Anyways, so this is a pillar construction, which is great. It's nice and easy to clean out. I love how Spyderco's standoffs look. I just really like them. And then you've got that bar back there for the lanyard hole. We really don't need it, right? But it's there, and that's fine. Pocket clip, excellent. Carries deep. It's the wire clip. Looks good. Feels good. It's kind of flat out here. So there's not if they cut it off right here, it would rise to meet any thickness of pocket seam, but it's not. So you might have to use two hands and push it in there. No big deal, right? Wire clip's good. It's just a great clip. This is it's got a mounting position for left-handed people, but it is a right-handed compression lock. Truthfully, you can manipulate this just fine with your left hand, but you have to use your thumb instead of your index finger, and it puts your hand in an awkward spot. So lefties, obviously you're going to be better with your left hand than I am because it would be your dominant hand. I still think, people, even with your dominant hand, you're putting yourself in a more awkward position using your thumb to disengage that compression lock. So this is mainly a right-handed person's knife for sure. Spyderco CPMS 30V, and on the other side it says Taichung Taiwan, and that is Eric Glesser's insignia. So that's kind of cool. Centering on this guy, I believe it's actually dead on. If it's not, it's just ever so slight. Nope, that bad boy is centered. Beautiful. Lockup. How's the lockup? Absolutely solid. No blade play up, down, left, or right, which is exactly what I expect. No blade stick either or anything like that. So this knife comes in at $168. Can I recommend it? Again, I kind of wish it was either G10 or carbon fiber, right? The blade looks weird. Part of me wants a sharpening choil, and part of me understands why it's not there. Truthfully, everything about this knife is fine. The flipper tab works, and it flips well, but it just didn't need a flipper tab. Like, it was forced on this knife. And it works, but it's like, I think this knife would be better. It would be more boring and more similar to other Spydercos, but it would be better without the flipper tab. I kind of just want this to have a little bit of a choily area in here that's like partially, in the handle and partially in the blade, kind of how you can see how they did this, right? And then this area, that's kind of what I want here. But then we'd have another sort of para 3 style knife. The only difference being it would be on bearings versus phosphor bronze. This is another pretty good knife from Spyderco, though. Honestly, it's pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of the ergonomics. Again, that issue would be solved if there was not a flipper tab there. But it's all right. It's very solid. It's very well built. It's exactly what you would expect from Taichung Taiwan. I think I would have really liked to see, the ultimate version of this knife for me, like where I would have been really, really happy is, honestly, with this geometry, give me 20 CV. They've been doing that sometimes with some of the Taichung Taiwan stuff. Give me 20 CV. And then, charge me another $20 and make it full carbon fiber, right? Like what we see on the Capara. Remove the flipper tab and make this more of a choily area. And I think it would have been kind of neat to see it on bearings, right? That would have been a home run. $185, I think it would have been fine. $168 for this, it's still recommendable. It's kind of a B- knife, right? It's like, good job. It could be better. But yeah, I can't complain too much. $168 isn't bad. It's weird. It's kind of quirky, right? But then again, that's kind of Spyderco's thing. It's kind of weird and quirky. Will it work? Is this a dependable cutting tool day to day? Are you going to be happy with it? Yeah, I think you'll be happy with it. Especially if you're just like, I just love flipper tabs and I love Spyderco knives and I can overlook all this other stuff. Then yeah, you're going to be super happy with it. This is a recommendable knife. It just didn't blow my socks off. So it's going to be going in my most recommended knives playlist, and it's going to go in my Spyderco knives playlist. But I'm kind of, there's not enough here for me to say, like, don't buy this, right? There have definitely been Spyderco knives where I'm like, no. But yeah, this is pretty good. It's all right. It's just kind of like, why? Why did they do it like this, right? Anyways, you can pick this knife up, like I said, right down in the description, as well as other Spyderco knives that are available right now. I think that's going to be pretty much it today. Thanks again to Michael for sending this in for review. This was an interesting one. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.